your wins. They're friendly to your face, but you hear later they've been talking about you behind your back. They volunteer you for impossible deadlines or projects designed to fail. This isn't random negativity.
Welcome to the next generation of website creation. Wix Harmony. Get the power of...
Imagine you're at a bustling street market. The air smells of
to stage, baby mother. And then there's some other stuff over here. Style. Where I can change my stuff to circle. I want a circle. I like circles. I want to change my color to green. Not that kind of green. Yeah. Something like this. Yeah, that's good. All right. Did it change it though? All right. My bad, y'all can't see what I'm doing on this screen, but this is the CapCut screen. I'm just trying to get things right. Now I can set up my brand and stuff too, but I'm not. Let's play this so y'all can see what we talking about.
of spice and rain. A vendor catches your eye, not with a shout, but with a quiet, confident smile. He's selling, well, you're not sure yet. But there's a small crowd around him. A well-dressed man nods earnestly, handing over cash for a beautifully carved, utterly useless wooden box. You drift closer. The vendor sees you, and with a magician's grace, offers you a tiny, free sample of honey. From my own bees, he says, his voice warm. As the sticky sweetness hits your tongue, he mentions, almost as an aside, that the handsome man who just bought a box? He's a respected architect from the city. He's bought 3. You look at the box. The price tag seems high, but the
all right, so now basically, just to break that down, he's just saying like, okay, when you see the person, he just said that a handsome person, successful person. So if you think that you are handsome or that you are successful, or if you think that you are better than a handsome or successful person, or can do the same things that a handsome and successful person do, now you have all of these internal reasons to do what this person is saying to do. You feel me?
The vendor, now your friend, the beekeeper, leans in. I only have 2 left. They're quite rare. The carving is based on a lost Baltic tradition. You feel a peculiar tug in your chest. Your hand moves toward your wallet. Congratulations, you've just been drafted into a live-action demonstration of influence. The principles at play are the foundational work of Dr. Robert Cialdini, a psychologist who spent his career identifying the universal triggers of human compliance. But the faint, greasy smirk you might have glimpsed on the vendor's face as you walked away, that's the shadow. That's dark persuasion. This is the story of how the same psychological levers that build communities and foster trust can, with a twist of intent, become the tools of manipulation, coercion, and control. It's a tale told with the dark humor of recognizing our own wiring, the laugh that catches in your throat when you realize how easily your strings can be pulled. Part 1. Cialdini's Cathedral, the 6 Pillars of Influence. Dr. Cialdini's work, you see, is not inherently sinister. It's more like an architectural blueprint for how we, as social animals, are built to say yes. He identified, 6 core principles. First up, reciprocity, that overwhelming urge to give back when we receive something. The free sample, the complimentary advice, the unexpected favor, these are all examples. It's honestly the social glue of civilization. Next, we have scarcity, the limited time offer or the one-of-a-kind opportunity. We're driven by the fear of missing out, or FOMO, long before it was even an acronym. It's just human nature. We want what we can't easily have. 3, authority, the white lab coat, the titled expert, the uniform we are, conditioned to defer to perceived authority, to trust the prescription, the recommendation, the command. 4. Consistency and commitment. Once we take a small stand or make a tiny commitment, we feel this internal pressure to behave consistently with that initial action. Say yes to a small banner on your lawn, and, well, you're more likely to say yes to the larger, uglier sign later. 5. Liking. We say yes to people we like, friends, people who are similar to us, who pay us compliments, who are physically attractive, who cooperate with us. We are, at heart, tribal. 6. Social proof. It's fascinating, really. We look to the behavior of others to determine our own, especially when we're not quite sure what to do. Think about the laugh track on a sitcom, the bestseller label on a book, or, well, the crowded restaurant everyone wants to get into. These signals tell us, often subconsciously, what's popular, what's safe, and maybe even what's right. These are the pillars of Cialdini's cathedral. They explain why people donate to charity, why certain marketing campaigns soar, why some leaders inspire loyalty, and, honestly, why healthy social bonds form in the first place. But let's not forget, a cathedral can cast a very long shadow. Part 2, The Shadows in the Aisles, the Dark Persuasion Playbook. Dark persuasion takes these very pillars and, well, retrofits them with hidden blades. It's no longer about mutual benefit, it's about extraction. It's Cialdini's principles, sure, but the user's manual has been rewritten by Iago. So, let's walk through the same 6, now wearing black, if you will. First up, reciprocity. The boomerang of debt. In Cialdini's light, it's simple. A colleague covers your shift, you later buy them coffee.
You, just you, building your app on base 44. Describe it. And it's real. One thought leads to more thoughts. Layer by layer.
One thing
Harmony, right? But here's where dark persuasion twists it. A narcissistic...
So one thing that I do got to make sure that I start to do is I have to make sure that I pay for this goddamn YouTube. Now I'll pay for YouTube. Okay, yo. I was not about to be out here paying for no goddamn YouTube. Like that was just out of control. Why would I do that? You feel me? I feel like when people watch this stuff, I feel like, first of all, I don't want to pay for it, right? So I'm trying to think of reasons why. But one of the main reasons why is just I got the time. But right now, the time is about...
partner performs a grand, unsolicited favor, maybe planning an extravagant...
There's this thing that happens. You get good at your job. You show up on time. You hit deadlines. You solve problems quietly. Your manager starts trusting you. Your coworkers start depending on you. And you think this is progress. It isn't. What you've actually done is build a trap. This trap costs years. Not money, years. To be clear, being good at your job matters. The mistake is thinking it's the whole strategy. This isn't true in every job, but it's true in most organizations. Here's how it works. When you're good at your job, you become valuable in a very specific way. You become the person who gets things done, the person who doesn't need to be managed, the person who makes everyone else's life easier. And that sounds like a good thing, but if you think office politics doesn't apply to you, you're probably the person it's hurting most. Because here's what actually happens. You show up, you do good work, you follow the rules, and then you watch someone else get
what? Get promoted.
Someone who talks more than they produce. Someone whose work you know isn't better than yours. And you tell yourself it's because they're playing games. But that's not quite right. Office politics isn't about backstabbing. Most of the time, it's not even about being fake. It's simpler than that. Office politics is the gap between how work is supposed to work and how it actually works. That's it. You were given an incomplete rule book and nobody told you. They just let you fail according to rules you didn't know existed. Here's the rule you weren't taught. Being good at your job is necessary, but it's not sufficient. You also have to be seen as good at your job by the right people at the right times. And nobody explains this to you because if they did, it would sound corrupt. But it's not corruption. It's just how groups of humans make decisions. It's been this way forever. Let me show you how this plays out. Two people do the same quality of work. One sends a weekly update email to their manager. Nothing fancy, just 3 bullet points about what they did. The other person doesn't. They assume their work speaks for itself. 6 months later, budget cuts. The manager has to let someone go. He has a clear, recent picture of what the first person contributes. The second person is a blur. Guess who gets cut? This is the part that breaks people because the second person worked just as hard, solved just as many problems, but none of it mattered. Not because the manager is evil, not because the system is rigged, but because invisible work gets treated like it doesn't exist. And most people's work is invisible. Here's another thing that happens. You do a project with someone. You do most of the work. They present it in a meeting. 3 months later, everyone remembers it as their project, and you feel cheated because you were. But here's what actually happened. Credit didn't flow to the person who did the work. Credit flowed to the person who communicated the work. This isn't fair, but fairness isn't the system you're operating in. Visibility is the system you're operating in. And you can be right about fairness while still losing. There's a deeper problem here that most people miss. You think you're being judged on output, lines of code written, reports filed, problem solved. But that's not how perception works. Your manager isn't keeping a spreadsheet of your contributions. They're keeping a feeling, a vague sense of whether you're reliable or not, competent or not, worth investing in or not. And that feeling gets built from fragments. A comment you made 3 months ago, the time you stayed late to help with something, the time you didn't. These fragments add up to a story, and the story determines your career more than the spreadsheet ever could.
That's right.
Now, let's talk about relationships. This is where people shut down because it sounds like networking, and networking sounds fake. But relationships at work aren't about being fake, they're about being known. When your manager picks someone for a project, they pick someone they trust. Trust doesn't come from your resume, it comes from dozens of small interactions. A question you asked, a problem you solved quietly, the way you handled something when it went wrong. All of that builds a picture, and that picture makes decisions. You don't have to be friends with everyone. You don't have to perform, but you do have to be a person.